spend the afternoon at Loch Ness Lake. As she strolled down by the shore, something huge and black caught her eye in the water. Shocked, the old lady pulled out her cell phone and began recording. Unfortunately, the woman in question was severely frightened, or is just horrible at handling technology. Either way, it's clear that something very large is alive and moving in the water. Number 4. Under the Waves. Sometime near the spring of 2014, a family of tourists decided it was time to visit the notorious lake and see for themselves just what the fuss was about. Of course, they never expected to actually see Nessie. Not long into their visit, a long, almost snake-like creature was seen swimming just below the surface of the water. While the animal never raises its head out of the water, it's clear from the footage that it's not an eel or a shark, which people often mistake for the monster. Number 3. Alaskan Nessie. Last year, a group of Alaskan workers were traveling on a boat down a river when one of the crew members spotted something quite unusual trailing behind them. As more of the crew were alerted, one of them whipped out a camera and recorded the odd-looking creature. The footage itself is only a few minutes long, but members of the crew claim that the animal had been visible for quite a while. After the footage was uploaded, it quickly went viral. Skeptics have come forward stating that what they filmed was no animal but a rope with chunks of ice stuck to it. However, the Alaskan workers have been adamant and steadfast in their claims. They said that they could clearly see the animal swimming downstream with them. So, is it a rope with ice or Alaska's own Nessie? You be the judge. Number 2. Nessie's cousin. Despite Nessie's fame, she isn't the only legendary lake monster. Lake Champlain, a 125-mile body of water between New York and Vermont, is also home to a lake monster known as Champ. Over the years, there have been over 300 sightings of Champ swimming about in the lake. Many local residents claim that both states encourage these tales as a means of tourism. However, tales of the Lake Champlain monster go as far back as the Iroquois and Abenaki Indians who used to live in the region. They called it the Tatuskak. In 2015, an anonymous viewer sent YouTuber Enoch a video they aren't soon to forget. The video was taken on a bright, clear day at Lake Champlain. The viewer began recording when he saw something long and skinny bobbing close to the surface of the water. The object in question looks like a log at first, but can clearly be seen swimming and thrashing around moments later. It would seem the good old Nessie has a family member. Number 1. Caught in the Act. While not much is known about this video, it's hard to imagine a film crew who has better timing. Set in 2007, two individuals are speaking into the camera as if making a documentary. What the subject matter is unclear and quickly becomes irrelevant when the camera operator spots something huge in the water outside the window. Everyone rushes to the side of the boat, but the creature itself doesn't seem camera shy. Its long, skinny body can be seen breaking just slightly over the surface before dipping down into the water again. It's clear by the wake it leaves that whatever the creature may be, it is extremely long, possibly even as long as the boat itself. And there, you have 5 Loch Ness monsters caught on camera and spotted in real life. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like and share it, and if you haven't already, subscribe down below to get notified almost every single day with new videos from Top 5's finest. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, we are out. Many accounts tell of victims begging to be killed before they turn. Wendigo psychosis has a wealth of evidence to support it. Victims begin craving human flesh while simultaneously having a paranoid fear of becoming a cannibal themselves. The fact is that these creatures are real, and the damage they do can be catastrophic. We've found 5 Wendigo caught on camera and spotted in real life to help you decide for yourself what you think about this strange phenomenon. Let's begin. Number 5. Possible Footage 2013. When two friends decided to explore an abandoned cabin, they may have accidentally stumbled upon a fully turned Wendigo. Many of the stories that tell of Wendigo sightings or killings involve those who have recently succumbed to Wendigo psychosis or were so overcome with remorse that they were able to maintain a semblance of their humanity. The creature seen in this video looks very much like the real deal. Sometimes, if psychosis carries on long enough or a victim is weak enough when possessed, the victim can go through some startling changes. These descriptions vary from case to case, but most describe a large creature covered in short hair standing on two legs. What these kids saw was exactly that. Now, given the day and age, we think this video is probably pushing the boundaries of believability just a tad. The video effects and supposed problems are probably just editing tricks or extras making spooky noises. We're still not completely convinced about this one, but have to admit that it could very easily be real. What we do know is that the following stories aren't staged by bored kids for our general amusement. Given that Wendigo psychosis is a real phenomenon, we figured we'd give these kids the benefit of the doubt. Number 4. Swift Runner, 1879. It's interesting to note that the first legal execution that occurred in Alberta, Canada was actually a mistake. Unfortunately for the Cree trapper, who went by the name of Swift Runner, the government at the time couldn't quite comprehend what many people had already figured out. By the latter part of the 1800s and the first few decades of the 1900s, Wendigos were known to be real by the vast majority of Canadians. In northern Alberta at this time, there were a large number of grisly attacks and murders that shocked the province as well as rattling the entire nation. These were, by and large, considered to be examples of Wendigo psychosis. Settlers in Ontario had previously heard about these creatures, but they hadn't been seen out west in these numbers before, so little was known about them or how to protect oneself. Swift Runner's story was especially gruesome. At one point in 1879, he found his way to a Catholic mission in Edmonton, Alberta. Those who he met were shocked that he suffered constant nightmares whenever he slept. When he mentioned that he was the only member of his family who had survived starvation the previous winter, their shock became suspicious. Witnesses say the man was well fed and showed no signs of any malnutrition whatsoever. Upon further investigation, the police found that he had gruesomely murdered 8 family members one by one and ate them over the course of a few months when an especially harsh winter led to them almost starving. He still maintained his innocence, saying that he was possessed by a Wendigo. He recounted the experience and said he was extremely sorry for what he had done. The problem was that Wendigos craved human flesh, and, well, he couldn't help himself. Every bite led him to need more and more, developing an insatiable hunger. We may never know exactly what made Swift Runner murder his family, but the evidence does point to Wendigo psychosis. Interestingly, this is the only case we were able to find that told of a Wendigo who was able to recall their experiences after the fact. Most of the time, the stories we hear come from Wendigo hunters, and the overwhelming majority of these involve these supposed victims begging for death before they are fully turned. Number 3. Little Jack, 1894. A tale told by a trapper in Kenora, Ontario, which has been a well-known Wendigo hotspot throughout the past few centuries, concerns a hunting party that set out in 1894. 2 of the men were tourists visiting from Chicago. The father and son duo, by the name of Sears, had traveled by train to Ontario in order to hunt for moose, although they both thought that they could do much better than a simple moose. They met up with a guide named Little Jack who offered to take them on an expedition through the area surrounding the Mattawa River. Little Jack was a local Algonquin and was known throughout the area as one of the best trackers around. His specialty was finding moose and other big game, so he was an obvious choice for the Sears. After a couple days of travel, the team entered Quebec. They had seen many moose, but both the Sears were hoping to head home with a more impressive trophy and opted to push further into the bush. Little Jack had heard of many bear sightings around a nearby lake, but also warned the foreigners that there had been further reports of a massive and unknown creature lurking there too. The pair assumed that their guide was being overly cautious, but agreed to a few basic rules that Little Jack insisted they adhere to. First, he stated that nobody should attempt to land at the northern or western edges of the lake, and that the two were to set up camp at predetermined locations. Their guide would then travel between the two regularly to ensure their safety, and all would leave long before sundown. He made it clear that both men were to stay put until it was time to leave. After an unsuccessful day, Little Jack approached Sears Sr. and told him to start packing up. It was then that he noticed Sears Jr. paddling across the lake. His father called to him, at which time Little Jack, suddenly frantic, barked at him to stay quiet. He then began furiously paddling towards Sears Jr., who had landed on the far bank. The Sears boy dashed into the woods after yelling that he had seen something large in the brush. Seconds later, the boy tore out of the trees and made it to his canoe before a massive creature standing on two legs leapt out and ripped his head off in one clean stroke. Horrified, Sears Sr. attempted to help, but was forced to leave by Little Jack. Jack explained later that the man's son had, unfortunately, been killed by a Wendigo. When news made its way back down south, the tone was understandably one of panic, although many simply couldn't believe it was true. Number 2. Jack Fiddler, 1907. Jack Fiddler was the chief and shaman of a particular subsect of the Gish-Kishigowan Dudum of the Anishinaabe tribe, known sometimes as the Sucker People. His attempted arrest by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and subsequent suicide made headlines back in 1907. The report that follows led to the insistence of the Canadian government that the tribe follow Canadian laws from then on. While the government claimed that Jack should be charged with murder, he and his people were adamant that the government had made a big mistake. At that time, the stories of the Wendigo had been morphed into urban legends, and the authorities of the day didn't believe in them anymore. Furthermore, at the time, Jack Fiddler and the Sucker People were one of the few remaining autonomous native tribes at the time, with almost all others previously being amalgamated into the greater nation of Canada. Jack had never shied away from his belief in Wendigos, and his community revered him as a masterful hunter of the strange creatures. He claimed to have killed 14 in total. Many of these were sent by the enemy, he claims, although he still had to end the lives of some of his own after they succumbed to the sickness. After he dispatched his brother's daughter-in-law, who was suffering from Wendigo psychosis, the RCMP rode over and demanded his surrender. Jack initially escaped, only to hang himself days later. His brother, Joseph, was sentenced to death for his complicity in the supposed crime. He pleaded that both he and his brother were always called upon by their people to help them euthanize the sick, as well as those under the effects of Wendigo psychosis, and that both were unaware of any Canadian laws. They had been observing a long-standing tradition that was absolutely crucial to the well-being of their tribe and had done nothing wrong. After a number of appeals, he was released, but the order was delayed and came late, 3 days after he was put to death. What is most disturbing is that the people of the time, both white and native, all knew about the threat of Wendigo psychosis. The Hudson Bay Company kept records of many such experiences, and all Canadians at the time knew of the rumors. Many of their people were turned when things went badly, and sometimes survivors were left to tell their stories, although not many were able to consider themselves that lucky. Number 1. Vince Lee, 2008. Considering the rest of our list is fairly outdated, this item may come as a bit of a shock to those who missed it. The mainstream media, while covering the story briefly, missed some obvious signs that Lee was under the influence of Wendigo psychosis when he completely lost his mind on a bus from Alberta to Manitoba. Lee, who delivered newspapers and worked at McDonald's, showed no previous signs of distress, and everyone who knew him said that he was a great guy, if somewhat quiet. Nobody could have prepared themselves for the scene that unfolded when Lee pulled out an immense hunting knife and began repeatedly stabbing 22-year-old Tim McLean, who was caught completely by surprise, powerless to stop his attacker. Lee supposedly stabbed McLean over 50 times, and one witness said that when he looked up, Lee had almost cut his victim's head clean off. The insane and rage-filled attack left everyone around him terrified, with nowhere to run except through the mayhem. What sets this story apart from most other brutal murders is that police found a bag in Lee's pocket after they arrested him that contained pieces of his victim's flesh, including part of his nose and ear. Curiously, Edmonton's local newspaper, the Edmonton Sun, had only 10 days prior published an article that contained an interview regarding Wendigo psychosis, adding an extra element to this mystery. What makes this tale even more depressing is that many of the other passengers on that bus have been irreparably damaged by the scene that unfolded. Lee's animal intensity and the brutal and vicious way he carried out the murder have haunted most, and they say they will never forget hearing Tim McLean scream. For his gruesome crime, Lee was sentenced to spend a year in a maximum security psychiatric facility, but was not charged with murder after he pled insanity. Indeed, after the attack started, the bus driver yelled at Lee to stop stabbing McLean. Lee, who was almost completely unresponsive during and after the attack, supposedly stopped and maintained his composure just long enough to cry out, "Get emergency!" before he was overcome once again. It seems like he must have been aware of what was happening, but completely unable to do anything about it. This marks one of the first documented Wendigo attacks in the better part of a century, and we can only hope that it was isolated. And there, you have 5 Wendigo caught on camera and spotted in real life. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like and share it, and if you haven't already, subscribe down below to get notified every single day with new videos from Top 5's finest. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, we are out. Twitch is a famous streaming site where gamers upload their streams, but little did you know, there's a dark side. Numerous ghost encounters, hauntings, and real-life suicides have occurred on Twitch. Many bizarre moments have been documented. There are also a lot of pranks performed by streamers who sometimes tend to lose touch with the outside world. But if any of these videos are pranks, they were clearly taken just a little too far. Here are 5 instances when Twitch turned from stream to scream. Let's begin. Number 5. Self-shutting doors. Rubsy is a famous streamer on Twitch who was asked to take care of a pet while a friend was away. But arriving at his friend's house, his life was about to change forever. He began streaming a gaming video, and then things got out of control. The door behind him slammed shut, which caused Rubsy to jump out of his chair screaming. But the hall was completely empty. Finally, when other things in the house begin moving on their own, Rubsy decides not to be rubsed out and hightails it for home. Number 4. Haunted live video. This haunted live video of a Twitch streamer is simply bizarre. There's a knock on a door that catches the streamer off guard. He asks a friend if he also heard it and then continues the video. Later, he hears the knock again and tells the audience that he's feeling goosebumps. While going to check on his dog, the streamer gets a Skype message with a small beep. The video ends when the camera, microphone, and his wiring fall from the stand onto the table with a loud boom, and the terrified streamer tries to cut the live feed as quickly as he can. Number 3. Match your IQ. In this video, a Japanese streamer destroys his house in a manner so mundane and avoidable, it's hard to believe the video was staged. While playing Minecraft, the streamer, Daisuke, tries to get a lighter to work, but to no avail. He uses a match to light a cigarette, but foolishly throws the match in a pile of trash. Soon, the matchbox, then the entire bag of litter, is set ablaze. Nothing Daisuke tries to put out the fireworks, and he soon must flee for his own safety. Number 2. Streamer suffers a seizure. It is said that some gamers have died from lack of sleep or simple dehydration because they got so caught up playing a video game that they forgot to sleep or drink a glass of water. Lothar had a slightly different fate. He's playing a card game when his head begins to hurt. He becomes unresponsive, seizes, and faints while the camera is rolling, then falls to the floor and emits a loud and painful moan. Lothar's wife came busting through the door and immediately called the ER, then she tries to give him CPR with no luck. This gamer's ultimate fate is mysterious, but fans felt helpless that there was nothing they could do. Number 1. Suicide Solution. On March 3rd, a streamer called Ice Poseidon decided to film his trip to Hollywood, but the event he witnessed was anything but an act. He was walking around Hollywood Boulevard with his friend when they noticed that a crowd had gathered. To everyone's horror, there's a man on a balcony ready to jump. Ice Poseidon's viewers went crazy as he ran in a fight-or-flight response. Then, a loud scream can be heard in the background. The leaping man had just hit the ground and died. You can bet that Mr. Poseidon wishes he'd gone to visit the LA Strip instead, where heavy metal bands only sing about death and mayhem. And there, you have 5 scariest moments caught on Twitch.tv. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like and share it, and if you haven't already, subscribe down below to get notified almost every single day with new videos from Top 5's finest. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, we are out. Man has always looked to the skies above, looking for answers to questions or to find some sort of meaning. Sometimes, looking towards the sky can only create more questions. In recent centuries, the sky has become contested not only by governments and militaries, but by ideologies and religions as well. What do the stars mean? Could these be the end of times or simply natural events that we never noticed until we paid attention? These are 5 unexplained mysteries in the sky caught on camera and spotted in real life. Let's begin. Number 5. Eye over Russia. In March 2017, a strange glowing eye appeared in the night sky over Chelyabinsk, a city in Russia, the same city where a meteor exploded above in 2013. The eye appeared in the early morning. The phenomenon caused a combination of panic and passive interest as it rested quietly above the city, and drew obvious comparisons from the media, including the Eye of Sauron, the Eye of Providence, and even Big Brother from George Orwell's 1984. There are several possible causes. The bright, flashing lights on the ground near the phenomenon led some to speculate that the eye itself was a hologram, or tied into the Project Bluebeam conspiracy theory. Others have suggested that the phenomenon may be related to transient luminous events, a combination of natural and supernatural lighting events. Number 4. Rainbow clouds over Brazil. In December 2016, a strange, colorful cloud formation appeared over Brazil. The phenomenon became known as the rainbow cloud or fire cloud. Some people believe that this is a natural phenomena similar to that of rainbows, as the name implies. As white sunlight hits the cloud, it's scattered by the water molecules within, creating a colorful light. But if the mechanism of such a cloud is so simple, why are they seen so infrequently? It's been suggested that the cloud may have a more significant supernatural cause. Some have suggested this cloud may be the product of HAARP, a conspiracy to control global weather. Others have proposed that the cloud may be a form of camouflage for a UFO or an interdimensional portal. Number 3. Second sun over Slovakia. Bratislava, Slovakia looked like Tatooine in January and February 2017 as 2 suns seemed to rise and fall over the Eastern European landscape. Some have argued that this phenomenon is the result of reflections in a cloudy sky, mirroring the sun in a manner similar to the Fata Morgana optical illusion. Others have argued that this is an omen, and that the second sun may not be a sun at all, but Planet X, or Nibiru, a popular concept